I totally forgot to do this at the start, and we're already live, so I'm very sorry to do this, but your preferred pronoun is she?
Yes.
And are you comfortable with being called they?
Yeah, that's fine, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Sorry about that for the strange start, but board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, I'm not gonna shout. We are starting off this streaming with a little bit of dancing. And over there, to this side of me, you will see the person known as Ellie. Ellie has made some games for your family. Ellie has made some games for or under a Christmas tree. Board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, it's not gonna shout. And it's not enough to make a game to be playing, because maybe you want to be hearing about those games. Maybe you need to be reaching those people with the families who might be playing. Board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, we're not gonna shout. Hey, good morning.
Hello!
Or evening or whatever, because it is, of course, the busy bedtime board game bladder in honour of our New Zealander, Australian friends in that sort of parts of the world. And coming up today, we are talking about reaching families, which is with the wonderful Ellie Dix. Lovely to have you here. And we've got
Lovely to be.
Hello to you, and Chris from the Unicorn Collective. It's lovely to see you as well. And so, can you, for those who don't know anything about you, Ellie, could you introduce yourself in a minute?
Yes, my name's Ellie Dix. I design board games and I run a publishing company called the Dark Imp. And the Dark Imp specialises in games for families with children aged 8 and up. I have written a book called The Board Game Family, Reclaim Your Children from the Screen, and which is quite apt during lockdown. And yeah, I've created quite a lot of different games, different formats. And before that, I was a teacher and I ran an education company. Yeah,
and
what else do you need to know?
You've got the Cracker games that have come out, and the
games,
all sorts of puzzle boxes and stuff.
Puzzle boxes and coaster games, so games on coasters, and notepad games, roll and write games in a little mini pad, and games in tins.
There's all sorts of stuff to get your family playing and enjoying life together.
Exactly.
And good morning to Punchboard Reviews. I feel like I know this person, but I can't remember your name. But it's lovely to have you here with us, and feel free to shout any questions or comments along the way. For those who don't know, we start off sillier, then we get a bit more on topic, then we end up a little bit sillier again. Talking of which, let's start off talking about brilliant things. What's a little thing which is brilliant? Now, we've talked about glasses before, and unless Elliot, do you want to take over this section, or are you happy?
No, please. I have forgotten about the brilliant thing today.
Okay, well,
brilliant thing.
I think we've already talked about tea, but I want to talk about very big glasses. I want to talk about having, just a bigger glass that you can fill up with tea or, water or anything. It just means that you've got to go to the sink fewer times.
Yeah, now, interesting, because one of the things on my Christmas list is a sort of little hot plate that I can have next to my desk, so that I have to go into the kitchen fewer times, so that I can keep my cup of tea warm. So a large glass or a large mug would be very good for that, because the problem with a large glass is that things do get cold, and I don't like a cold drink, so I want a hot plate.
I mean, what I like is I like my tea. So just now, this is very hot. I'm not going to be drinking it for like a good half an hour or so. It'll probably So I know you're kind of flabbergasted. You're thinking, what's up with Bez? I like my tea to be kind of just marginally above lukewarm. For me, that's...
Okay. This is not how I like my tea. I like a nice hot cup of tea. And when it gets to, well, every single, I know you can't probably see in here, but every cup, I'm going to end up pouring this on my computer. I better not do that anymore. There's a good inch in the bottom of that, which is too cold for me to drink and will get discarded because I get down that far in every cup and I don't drink the rest. It's too cold. Don't like it.
Why do you not drink faster?
I sometimes do. Do you know how many cups of tea I get through a day? I've had 5 already today and it's only 10.
Wow! How?
Yeah.
5 cups of tea already?
Yeah, well,
and you only woke up like 4 hours ago?
Hey, Bez, do you know what? If we were to share a working space, I could drink like the top half and leave you the tepid stuff. And then because I would get through more tea than you, it would be a perfect arrangement.
I mean, it depends on the kind of tea that you want. I mean, I like my fancy tea. I mean, here I've got a mixture. I've got Twining's Glow mixed with the free ginger from Pukka.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I think I need to try that before I comment.
I'm all about the kind of fruity teas, and hello Adam, who says that their cracker turned up just last week, and Xate says they like it either very hot or very cold. Also, my tea should be coffee. Ludo Cherry, which is this Phoebe, says no, you save the old tea to enhance the next tea in the same cup.
No, this is very bad. This is definitely not what I'm going to do.
Or just pour it into a bottle in the fridge for iced tea.
No, I don't like that idea either. I'm all about the very hot tea.
So what we're hearing is that if you were to share a working environment with Ellie Dix, then, you know, maybe all this old tea could be saved because there's this old tea just waiting for someone to take care of it and someone to love it. Don't you want to take care of Ellie Dix's old tea? Reach out by calling.
I have shared workspaces in the past, and the sharing of old tea, amazingly, is something that never came up in conversation. But there were enough of us in the office that there were lots of cups of tea being made all the time. So that worked well.
It just feels a bit wasteful. I don't know. But to be fair, it's not like the worst thing in the world to waste a bit of water that's been seeped in tea bags. It's also like how many times do you use your tea bags?
Well, you see now, I'll tell you a little story about when I was at university, because when I went to university, and this is a while ago, we decided that we rigged up a whole load of things to make ourselves look poor when our parents came to see us, so that they would give us more money. So in my flat, we had this little line of tea bags that were pegged up like a washing line of tea bags, and we made this big thing of, oh mum, I better take one for you from the end that's only been used once or twice. You don't want the left hand side, they're for the really old tea bags. But now, so I often make a pot. Actually, I often make a pot, and won't use very many tea bags in that. So one tea bag for the pot usually, and then several cups out of it. But yeah, I do usually only use it once. But then I'm making a cup for my husband as well. We use the same tea bag, so yeah.
I mean, what I find is that once you've used a tea bag once, and then you kind of next time use that same old tea bag to give it a little bit more flavour plus an extra tea bag. And then
it's so revolutionary, all of these tea ideas I've never thought of. I don't like the using of the, mind you, I have loose leaf tea and I do use that several times.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in the chat, and hello David Digby, it's lovely to see you. And yeah, I'd like to encourage everyone to tell us, well, you can talk about your tea drinking things, or tell us what size of vessel do you like. Do you agree that a big glass is the best glass?
Let's see. I like a big mug, actually, rather than a glass.
Anyway, let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So, I'm going to talk about just seeing flowers, and it was lovely to have Chris on stream that we were chatting for like 4 hours, reviewing all those games if you didn't see it yesterday. I'm thinking that potentially I might ask Chris to like split up that video to go on to Board Game Geek, because yeah, if someone wants, maybe we should be a bit more mindful, but I feel like if someone wants to hear my opinion on Taj Mahal or Pick a Pig or whatever, then they can, but you know, maybe they don't want to go through the thing, and there's no timestamps or anything. So but yeah, that was my main recent highlight. The rest of yesterday, I'm not going to lie, there was a bit of, okay, I'm just going to write off the day, but a little bit of footering around with a mobile game that I'm not going to get into, because it's one of those ones where, you know, they're pretty interchangeable. And listening to podcasts, I listen to a good bit of Ludology, which is a great podcast. Gil Hova, Emma Larkins, and Scott Rogers, that's the one. And yeah, listening to that, just kind of sitting back and then having a very early night, going to bed around 8 or 10, because I had been to bed very late the previous day. I still woke up around 7:50, so clearly I needed a good bit of that sleep.
You needed a lot of sleep.
But that was my recent highlights. How about you?
Well, non-gaming recent highlight was that my son Alfie turned 18. I don't know how that happened. It was Essen weekend, so it was the Friday that we were supposed to be at Essen, and the two of us were going to go to Essen together like we usually do. So it was disappointing that we weren't there, because I was looking for, you know, that's what he wanted to do for his 18th, which was lovely. Yeah, I said to him, don't you want to spend your 18th with your mates? No, I want to go to Essen. It was lovely, but we weren't able to do that. But and of course there was the rule of 6, so he couldn't really have very many people over. But my husband and I took one for the team. We decamped, went off to a nice hotel for the night, and so he could have an extra 2 people over. So he ended up having 4 friends over instead of 2, and played board games with them at home. So yeah, easiest 18-year-old party ever when they're into games. Is what they're doing. So. You know, he doesn't drink, he doesn't do anything except play games and Magic the Gathering. That's what they were doing, really. But the highlight was going to stay in a lovely hotel for the night. That was lovely. And recently I have been playing, so I've been playing Athenium. I don't know if you've heard of it, Mystic Library. Yeah.
No, I don't know this one.
I don't.
What kind of game is it?
It's a nice sort of family weight game. The theme is about putting magical books back in their bookcases. You're kind of students in a school, and you're collecting these little books and putting them back in the bookcase. So it's a sort of simultaneous play, which is really nice. Card drafting, like Seven Wonders, you draft a card and play the card simultaneously. So you're not kind of creating a hand and then playing that hand. You're taking one, playing them, and everybody plays at the same time. And it's really nice because it's full of benefits. You know, that you get benefits from the card you're putting down, but the card has 3 sections, and it also gives a benefit to the person on your left and the person on your right. And so you're getting lovely things from your card, but you're getting lovely things from the cards on either side of you too. And everybody plays at the same time. And it's really, you know, it's quite quick to play. It's quite a nice puzzle because you're rearranging books on shelves and trying to make certain configurations. And there's this sort of rolling line of objectives, which each time a new card is played moves over. So you've got a time limit to when you claim these objectives, which is really nice. It works well, actually. Easy. And
then can anyone claim these objectives, or is it one person per objective?
No, everybody can claim them. So it's very much a sort of open, it's a really good feel-good game because there's no conflict at all. It's all about nice stuff. So you can all go for the same objectives, and the only problem is if they drop off the end before you get to them, or if you need a little wand, a wooden wand, to be able to claim an objective. So you might have got the configuration it says on the card, but you need the wand to be able to claim it, and you might find yourself without a wand. But that's your own sort of planning rather than anything anybody else can do to you, which is a nice thing for families, I think. It's a really good game.
Other than the drafting, it sounds like there's not much interaction, so it's very low competitive. It's going to be quite friendly, feel good. And that's Ethereum?
Athenium, Mystic Library. Yeah, Athenium. Yeah, it's a nice one. I've been reviewing it for Tabletop Gaming magazine, so.
Cool.
Yes, very
nice.
nice.
That's the question that I'd like to ask you, but it's not quite that time yet. But let's say hello to Scott Moore, who's saying that you want about 400 milligrams, milliliters even, milligrams, what am I saying? It's 400, half a litre is half approximately 1 pint.
Yeah, exactly. Half a litre is about a pint.
So 400 milligrams would be about 80% of them, so about there.
Yeah.
But Scott says, in the morning, it's coffee time. Xate says, if it's too big, then Xate can't lift it, which talking about accessibility, these are the things that you don't always think of. And hello, Alex. It is lovely to see you. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this would be like billions of milligrams of tea. Billions. But anyway, so if you have recent highlights, feel free to share them. Otherwise, feel free to ask any silly questions that you have as we go into the questionably quick questions. But I want to ask you, first of all, well, we start off by saying, where exactly are you and what time is it?
I'm in Hemel Hempstead in Hertfordshire, and it's 10:17 a.m.
I am at the same time zone, and it is about 20 miles away.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
It's maybe a couple of hours by bike, I think.
Yeah.
But let's start. I want to congratulate you on your new gig with Tabletop Gaming Magazine, one of the very few print magazines that are about gaming. I mean, in the English language, we've got Tabletop Gaming Magazines at Casual Games Insider, which has a lot more product placement and advertising going on.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a couple of German ones, at least one French one that I know of. And I'm sure there's like stuff going on because I don't investigate all the languages of print media. But yeah, congratulations on that. And how did you get that gig?
I don't know, really. I'd written a couple of articles for them, which were just sort of one-off articles, and then the editor just got in touch, and they'd reviewed some of my games as well, and then the editor just got in touch and said, would you like to do it? So I said yes, and there we are. So it's quite nice.
Amazing. So talk about those articles that you'd written earlier.
So I wrote an article called Fortunes or Feuds, which went up on their website, and that was when Matt was editor, and that's really about how to make board gaming more harmonious at the table. And then I did the Cardboard Manifesto column. Now I can't remember what the title was. Come back to me on that one. It was, oh no, I know. It was about how you shouldn't dumb down your games for families, how you should keep up the complexity, and that, nobody wants to play really boring, simple games. So, boring games anyway. Yeah. So then, and then I was involved in the Tabletop Gaming Live in 2019 on a panel with James Wallace and oh my gosh, David Parlett and Theo Clark and people like that, and Nick from Ludo Quist. And then I was...
And the panel was about all the spiels?
Spiel des Jahres games, 41 years of the Spiel des Jahres it was, and we were sort of doing a quick run through of those things and trying to work out what the ultimate Spiel game was, and with audience participation. And then I was also involved in this year's virtual Tabletop Gaming Live. I did the opening. It ended up being the opening thing. After the opening of the show, it was the first sort of, I don't know if you call it a keynote. It's, the first kind of speaker, I guess. Yeah, but that was nice. So I've got a bit of a relationship with the editor, so that's kind of how you get in, I think.
So when you first did you approach them for that initial article? How? Yeah, if someone's kind of listening
it was when my book came out, and I think this is the thing about as we come on to talking about marketing games, it's the same sort of thing really. This whole sort of marketing cell for marketing games, when you have content, so whether you've got a book or whether you've got a blog that's got lots of articles on, people can see if they start to read your book that you can write. Now that's a huge, that is of huge benefit to anyone who might ask you to write anything, and it gives it gives you a bit of credibility in terms of writing. So it was a result of the book in the first place. The book came out, my book publisher sent something to Tabletop Gaming magazine and just said, Ellie's got this book out, do you want her to write anything? And they said yes, and that's where it started really.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that if you want to write for a magazine, then one way to go about it is first write a book.
Yes, or write. You just have to write generally. You don't have to necessarily have a physical book, though physical books really help because they are a sort of trust marker, I think. When you've got a book, there is a sort of people expect you to have a level of expertise in that subject because you've been able to write enough to put in a book about it. But I think, just writing on a blog, which of course you can set up very cheaply or free, and is a vehicle for you getting out your message and formulating your craft really, and learning how to communicate, and developing your voice, it just helps any kind of write. The more writing you can do, the more likely people are to ask you to write for them. And I do I don't just write for them, I write for all sorts of different places. I write articles for parenting blogs, education blogs, all sorts of different places. They just contact you and say, will you do a guest blog? And I usually say yes.
And is there anyone that's asked you to write something and you've said, hey, wait a minute, at this point, it's too much, I don't want to appear on your thing? Or, how do you make those decisions?
I mean, I think you have to make sure you're not stretching yourself too thin. But I generally think that, okay, so the difference between print media and actually digital media and blogs and things is that the blogs and the articles that go in online publications, print, they stay around for ages. So it's excellent marketing, not just in that a little flash that time, not just in that month that the magazine's out, not just in that day that the newspaper's out, but for a very long time. If people Google you, they find you. And so it's really worth, I think when somebody gives you an opportunity like that, it's really worth saying yes if you can and putting other things on hold. Because, I mean, there's a great quote from a guy called Daniel Priestley, who is who helps entrepreneurs to develop their businesses. And he says, you are what Google says you are. I mean, and what that means is that for most people, okay, not to your friends, you're not who Google says you are to your friends, but in terms of marketing, if people are going to Google your name, whatever comes up, that's what they think of you. And they might spend 5 minutes looking at you or searching your profile or less than that. So if you've got lots of positive things, you're writing in different places, if there's loads of different stuff about you, then it helps people to see that you are credible and that you are somebody that they're worth having a further conversation with. So I think it's usually worth saying yes to those things, unless it's something that that is totally misaligned with your vision, your direction, your culture, your belief system, or something like that. You don't want to be writing something that forces you to talk about, to go outside what you actually believe or what you think. You want to avoid that for sure.
I mean, I think we should kind of put this on hold maybe for one, or shall people aren't even asking any silly questions, which slightly surprised me because, I mean, so I'm just going to...
before and they've asked all the ones they want to know.
So let me just acknowledge all the things and then we'll get straight into the topic unless anyone comes up with any question.
We were supposed to be doing questionably quick questions. And I carried on answering, I forgot. Sorry.
Hey, that's why it gets questionably quick. So Alex is in their Sussex garden on furlough. Sate is under sofa, drugged up from a migraine that started yesterday, and lots of love. And apparently the drugs make everything feel like cotton candy. Their brain, the air, the blanket, and the cotton candy that Sate is perhaps or perhaps not eating. And talking about saying yes to stuff, Chris says that, well, since he came on Chris's show, apparently say yes to literally everything, which I've experienced is absolutely not literally true.
No.
But it is, and Chris is 100% pure cotton candy, and apparently, oh yeah, Alex says that Google says that Alex Cannon is a male model. Brilliant. And we could talk about, different people, because if you Google Bez, then, you'd have to go pretty far before you find me, because there is another Bez that's more famous than me, unfortunately. And most people just don't know my full name, which is Bez Chahriori. I mean, if you Google Bez and games as a separate word, then you do find me up top. But even there, then it's my website, and that kind of looks really rubbish, and I really need to get someone to do it. I was going to, anyway. So we've got...
To just say, I do say no to some things that require me to be in a certain place at a certain time. But I don't say no to writing stuff that doesn't require me to do that.
So, but Chris's thing was that okay, we'll work around you, we'll kind of fit in the time when you can do it, sort of thing.
It was in the right kind of time, and it wasn't, it was like this. It's fine because it's in my working day. I tend to say no to things that happen in the evening because I've got a family, and I don't want to be I already work loads. I don't want to be working every evening as well. So I want to be around for them, even if they are in their rooms and not interested in seeing me.
Okay, and hello, Nicholas. And we'll get to the, we'll stop the questionably quick questions after the ones that have already been asked. So, firstly, what would win, tiger or shark?
Depends whether you're on the water, in the water, or on the land, I imagine.
What if they were falling down out of a helicopter, like they were falling down free?
Tiger.
Tiger, okay.
Yeah, because they're more nimble.
If you could pull a cracker with anyone from history, who would you choose?
Oh, such a good question. I don't know. Oh God, the pressure. I have no idea. Somebody fun, I guess. I immediately think of Brian Blessed.
Oh man, that's such a good answer. I mean,
I think that anyone from history is too wide, but if I was going to pull a cracker with anyone at the moment, I'd probably choose him because
yeah. I can't lower the volume, but it's like, we want a cracker, pull it now, it must be pulled and the cracker will explode.
Exactly, you see, what's not to love about that?
But yeah, so that's some good questionably quick questions. Thank you, team. And let's do you want to say anything about your typical day that you've not already said?
No, well, it's relevant to what we're about to talk about. I would say that I spend 80% of my time, my working day, or my working week, maybe focusing on marketing, and 20% doing everything else. So, you know, I call myself a board game designer, but I'm actually mostly a marketeer, which is, you know, not as interesting maybe, but it's a necessary thing. You know, I could be a board game designer full time and so, you know, license my games, and I'd get more, I would publish more games with different publishers, but running a publishing company, you've got to be you've got to be on marketing first and foremost, because no customers, no income, no games, really. Yeah, so that's not really a typical day, but more of a typical week.
I think that it's a really good point, because and as we move into the main topic, feel free to comment and ask questions that are relating to what we're talking about, and if you've got extra thoughts, I'll flash them up. We might not reply to everything, but I do read them and I appreciate all the side chat. And yeah, quick shout outs: if you've not already gone there, then please join my Discord, which Bez and Friends Game Day is going to go again on the 9th of January. And now let's get to the main topic, which is all about reaching families, as we said earlier on. Now, what you're saying about everything being 80% marketing, it's 100% true, because it's sadly what you've got to do as a self-publisher. I mean, the reason that I keep coming back to my own examples, because it's what I know, but the reason that Yogi sold so much better than In a Bind, yeah, sure, they have made plastic cards, yeah, they've put it in a good tin, it looks good, but it's mainly, I mean, it's impossible to say, but I would say a good chunk of that is because of the distribution networks that they've established with other countries. Yeah. The fact that they've got a big budget and they do a lot of work in getting it out to French schools. Now VR Distribution has managed to get it to WH Smith, and now, you know, it's in like all these languages. Like just the fact that it's in like, I don't know, 20, 30 like different territories, like even if each of them only sells less than what I was personally selling in the UK, that all adds up. It becomes quite a bit. Yeah. And even if it's only selling like 1,000 or 2,000, then okay, that's 1,000 or 2,000 in Peru and 1,000 or 2,000 in Thailand, and 1,000 or 2,000. And so for myself, like if I want the L deck to be a big thing, which I do one day, then I do have to start being like, okay, you do have to put time or energy or get someone else to do marketing. And we don't want to spend the whole 60 minutes like today talking about why is marketing important. But it is just a sad fact that that's why when I have Chris over, lots of the things that I ask Chris to do basically come down to marketing, where it's, okay, let's get these little games that people are playing. Like, okay, Chris has taken a lot of amazing photographs of the L deck, and lots of like what's up there on L deck Twitter is through Chris. Like I do monitor it, I'm kind of keeping a bit of an eye on it, but it's like kind of having someone else who's doing this, and like, yeah, it feels like marketing is the thing that we're like, okay, we would all love to just be making these games, but yeah, we could talk about why even bother to do this. Should we even say like, why do you want to reach them yourself? Why not reach them via another company?
Well, I mean, that's your choice, right? For each person that's designing games, that is probably the biggest choice you're going to make, whether you go down the self-publishing route or whether you license your game to a bigger publisher. And the bigger publishers have got all of these networks, as you said, in place already in these distribution channels. And one of the reasons they can get your game out to people is because they already have those in place and they already have those relationships, and it's another game that's joining them. Now, if you want to try and get your game into different retail places, and you've got one game, that's one SKU, that's one item.
Stock keeping unit.
Yes, stock keeping unit, that's one item. You have to have the relationship with each retailer to get to become a new supplier to them. That is not as attractive to them as, they want to do business with as fewer suppliers as possible, to be perfectly honest. It's much easier for them if they're doing business with fewer suppliers. So it's more attractive for them to do, to have a supplier that's got a load of games, because they know that they're going to fill up their games section of their shop, or several, if they're a friendly local game store, then, they'll have several different suppliers, but they don't want hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. They want to be able to get a load from Asmodee or somebody. And so, they've got, you are competing not on a level playing field, because you've, as a self-publisher, you have to take into consideration that other board game publishers have got wider distribution channels, and that's fine. You might decide, like I have, that it's still what you want to do to self-publish, and like Bez, you've done some things like that too. But I know I've walked into that knowing full well that most of my time is going to be spent on marketing, because I do want it to be successful. I want it to become bigger. I want it to grow. I want the Dark Imp to become a name that has a lot of different titles and is, a much bigger publisher in the years to come. But I'm focusing on the business side and making sure that I still get to design games, but focusing on the marketing is the important thing for the business.
Yeah, this is the sad reality of it, and I just want to look as a what are we talking about? How are we defining this? It's like, just let's acknowledge the fact that, once again, if what you want to do is make one copy of your game because you want to give it as a gift to one person, that has so much value. Some might say that, it's not, this has more value, that has less value. But I would say that if I am making, a game that's, like a declaration of love, and by love I don't mean necessarily romantic love, this could be like, thank you for being such an amazing friend. Here's a game, like a complete reskin or like a completely new game that I'm designing just for you. Or, hey, here's something that we're making for our wedding, and hey, here's like a game that we've designed together. And if a few people want to buy it, then fine.
And that's a totally different thing.
Absolutely.
It's not morally any less than doing it in a different way. But I think,
what we're talking about here is, if you have decided that you are making games and your games are there to, excite families and be great for families to play together, and which we've already talked about what kinds of games those might be. Once you've decided you want to do this, again, you have to come to that decision. Are you doing this trying to make any income from it? In a sense, like, if you want, even if you don't want to make an income, if you just want to reach the most number of people because you think that your games have some value, then, step one is obviously make something that has value. If your thing doesn't have any value, then you need to kind of go back there. But step two is, once you've gotten something that is actually good, that is worth playing, let's let people know about it. And so that's where we are going to assume that even if you aren't about making money, even whatever your situation, whether you reinvest 100% of that money into the thing, even if you're running it at a loss, because you're able to financially afford to do that, you need to market it if you want more people to play it. And so I think, before we move on from the importance of it or what we're talking about, do you have anything more to add about those things before we start talking about the specifics?
No, not really. I think that you have to decide, don't you, what you're making games for, the reason that you're making games. Are you making games, designing games because you want to design games, and you enjoy designing games, or are you making games because you want to create a business? And those two things are totally different. And I've had a business in the past. I ran a business for 15 years, which I grew and sold to an American corporate. And so I had experience of running a business, building a business, selling a business. Not that I'm intending on selling this one. And so I came into it with my eyes open, really, knowing what the business side was and knowing that I liked that. And so, you know, that's a choice I made. If I wanted to just be a board game designer, I don't mean just in a derogatory way, but if I wanted to focus on designing to you know, and not doing all the rest of it, then I would be licensing my games to other publishers. That's the choice I would make, because when you're a board game designer and you're self-publishing, the publishing side of things is bigger in terms of time commitment than the design.
And I think this is such a big thing. And again, it's not a dichotomy. It's not say, do you want to be just a board game designer, or do you want to do it as a business? But let's assume that people understand what we're talking about. And let's go to some of the stuff that we were talking about in that kind of questionably quick questions. Because this, you chatting to Chris, you chatting to on the tabletop magazine, you know, their live show, you know, being part of that, writing the book, this is all parts of your marketing plan. Yep,
exactly. And, you know, marketing is huge and really wide ranging. There's all sorts of things you can do. And that's one of the reasons it's actually quite, I mean, for me, it's quite exciting, because you can have a marketing strategy that looks totally different from someone else's marketing strategy. You can have, you know, there's social media, there's networking, there's content creation, there's, you know, press and press coverage. There's all sorts, you know, there's print advertising. There's lots and lots of different ways you can cut it. And, you know, your strategy grows and develops over time, and it fits you as a person, your company as a whole, if it's more than you, and what you're creating and what you like doing more. So if you're a person that really doesn't like speaking on live streams, you're never going to come on your show, Bez, because, you know, there are plenty of people that don't feel comfortable. I mean, I go on the radio and things, and I'll do that kind of thing because I'm quite happy about doing it. But lots of people aren't. Lots of people aren't confident writing. So there are people that get other people to do that for them. And then I think what you've got to do is really make sure whatever you're doing, that you have sort of brand consistency and that you have a really good ideal customer in mind. You know, who are you trying to communicate to? Who is your ideal customer? And this is a fairly typical exercise to do in marketing, but, you know, create that person. You know, who is that person for you? Are they, you know, if you're selling games generally and they're not particularly family games, what kind of board gamer are you trying to sell your games to? Or if that you're trying to create family games, what kind of person are you trying to sell them to? Because, of course, it's one person buying it. You may be creating a game for the family, but it's not the family buying the game. It's not the children buying the game. So you have to market to the person who is buying the game. You have to market to the parent, or in some cases, the grandparent. Who is it that's your ideal customer, that's putting their hand in their pocket, buying the game and getting it to the table? Because it's a very different thing designing a game for children or for families than it is marketing to a mum or a dad or a grandparent, or, you know, another carer. Are you trying to market to schools? You're trying to get games out to schools. You know, who's the ideal customer? What do they look like? Give them a name, give them a life story, draw a picture of them and have it on the wall, so that you're thinking about Emma or Jacob or Hardip or whoever it is that's your ideal customer that's named. You're thinking about them. So whatever you're doing, whether you're writing stuff, whether you're speaking, you're thinking about that person, whether you're creating marketing copy, whether you're, you know, doing your little blurb about the game for Board Game Geek, whatever it is, you know, think about that, have that person in mind, so that you are trying to communicate with them all the time. I don't know, you know, if that's...
Can you be careful? I think you might be occasionally brushing up against the mic.
Okay, sorry. I have a piece of paper on my computer. That's probably the problem. I've moved it.
Okay, no worries. But so yeah, getting your deciding who your target audience is, and in the case of Alex, who jokingly says it's people with lots of spare cash that like mediocre games, and yeah, hopefully you do have something that you can speak to about your game to say, hey, this is really good for X reason, possibly even Y and Z reasons.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yes,
this
for
isn't
example,
about...
sorry.
Go ahead.
For example, my ideal customer is a mum. This is the person buying who's got teenage children who are kind of, she feels like she's losing them a little bit, like they become a bit more independent. They are not, you know, they're not spending as much time together as they were. They're not having as many conversations that aren't transactional as they were. And she wants to hang on to that, and she's looking for ways to bring them back and to have some quality family time together. And she's got some disposable income, and she's got a little, you know, she's got a little bit of flexible time, and that's the ideal customer. And it's no good saying that, well, it depends what you want, right? You can say that your ideal customer, it doesn't matter what their socioeconomic status is, but if you're trying to create a business, you need people who can afford to buy your game. And you might be creating something that's very cheap. You might have some print and plays that are £1 or, you know, something to for 99p to download. And if that will work for your target customer, then, you know, that's great. But, you know, it's no good having a target customer that has no money if you actually want to sell games. And that's a hard thing, because we don't want to necessarily always talk about that. But if you're making a business, that's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a sad truth, and 100%. Would you say that, I guess, putting yourself in a place where people are already buying the magazine, that's people who've got enough money to buy the magazine, and in a way that it's also about gaining some sorts of, people some sorts of respect, because you say that, okay, if you are part of a magazine, then, you know, there's been some curation. It's not like they allow anyone to write in it. I've never been allowed to write for it, and, you know, even though I've asked. But you know, maybe I should ask again, to be fair. And although to be fair, it's also like, once you've got that thing, like, at what point are you happy with your thing? What level? Because this is, it's all transactional. It's the hard truth of it. Because I know that in Cheap Ass Games, Jame Ernest talks about how back in the day they used to make games for free to go into a magazine. And if you're doing that, then the quality of the game doesn't need to be that good. People assume that the games that you're giving away for free are going to be not as good as the games that you're actually charging money for.
I don't know. I got to say that, you know, I don't. That may be what people. That may be what many people think, but I don't agree with that. I think that, you know, that there is actually, you know, I don't think it's all transactional. I think that a lot of marketing, and increasingly, you know, the world has changed, right? We used to rely on advertising coming in to make our decisions about how we're spending money, and it's not like that anymore. We can Google stuff. We can, you know, we can access recommendations very quickly, and that's how people are doing it. Now, there's a whole world of information there, and to get to the point where you decide to buy from somebody, what is it that makes you decide to buy from them? Sometimes it's the price, but a lot it's that people follow people, right? So they're going to become part of your tribe. They're going to like what you do, like what you say, and follow you. So if you are creating stuff that allows people to follow you, that hooks them in the first place, like a really good game that you can get free on download on a website like on mine, you can get a good game which is also being published, that you can, it's free print and play, but you can buy it as a sort of notepad game as well, and they can play it straight away. But then they're on the email marketing list, and when you're on the email marketing list, you can market to those people. Now, if you're not always selling, and I don't mean when I'm saying marketing to somebody, I don't mean you're always selling to them. I mean that you're communicating with them, that you're keeping them warm, that you're giving them good quality stuff for free, whether that stuff is a game or whether that stuff is advice or whether that stuff is, like I do lots of videos about, like, for example, a video about how to help a child who can't cope with losing board games, right? Now it's a huge issue in many families, and it's one of the things that stops people playing games. But if people are Googling that, right? If you can create, I've created a video that answers that question, that helps with that problem, and I'm giving that away to people who've signed up for my mailing list. And so they're getting quality stuff for free. It doesn't always have to be games, but it's not transactional. It's a relationship that's developing, a relationship of trust, and it develops credibility, and it gets them to, those people are warm. They know about me because every week I'm emailing them with something nice or something useful, and I give them, discounts to things, and I tell them about games before other things come up. And if I want a family to play test, I'm going to ask those people. So, it's about nurturing this. It's nurturing the relationships you have with your customers, with your potential customers, with your suppliers, and with your collaborators as well, because those are your network. And I think it's actually quite far from transactional. The sale is transactional, but marketing itself isn't. It's about relationships.
The word transactional, obviously it's quite nuanced, but I was specifically meaning when you're putting something into a magazine. For the magazine, either they are paying you with money for kind of writing there, or they're paying you with exposure. And we say, okay, exposure doesn't mean anything, but if it's, a mass printed magazine, then actually there is some decent exposure there. Yeah. And it's like, if you are asking me to design a game for you, that's going to be, that is the main thing that I do. If you want me to design a game for your wedding or something, and that's meant to be paid in exposure, no, that's clearly not cool. But if you wanted me to come onto your podcast or whatever, or if you wanted me to talk about word games at your convention, and yes, I'm offering something of value, and I would do lots of research and spend time kind of trying to come up with something, and I think I could probably, with a bit of work, do a fairly good show about word games, because I've developed, tens of them, literally. But there, the transaction is I provide the content. There's like a certain amount of exposure that needs to be worth it. But it's like, when are you going to do those things? Because it's about when do you say yes and when do you say no. I have at least one thing that I've said no to, which was I was invited to a kind of play-along thing to be part of something which probably would have gotten quite a few viewers, but it was at about it was going to maybe finish around 2 a.m. UK time. And for me, that's just not something that I'm willing to do. Yeah, and it's about what you said, kind of not running yourself ragged. Like for Kat Tobin, coming on here at 10 a.m. was a big deal for Kat. And the only reason that Kat came on, was because Kat wanted, because we're friends, and was like, okay, if it was anyone else, I probably wouldn't have come on. That's what Kat said.
But those decisions you make about what you will do and what you won't do, whatever that is to do with that ideal customer. Is it the best way for me to get to my ideal customer? Yes. Well, I think you've got a job there, Bez. Over to you for that one. It's about getting to that ideal customer, and is that the best decision to reach that person that you want to reach or not? And I think that you know, yeah, as I said, I often say no to things that fall outside, you know, when I want to communicate because I want to be with my family. But also I've said no to companies that have asked me to create board games for them, you know, to design specific games for them. And actually the reason I said no to them is because it takes a long time to make a really good game. And I'm not happy to create a shit game for them. I don't want to do that. So I think if I've got a game that's out in a magazine that's a print and, you know, that's a cut up and play game, I want that to be a good game, because it says something about, you know, that might be the first time they hear about me. That might be the first game they play from the Dark Imp. If they play it and it's not that good, well, then they're not going to come back and play more. It just seems silly to do that when you can make sure that you only put out games that you're happy to stand by, that you are proud of, and that represent you as a board game designer and represent your publishing company, or, you know, whatever it is, as the company that you want. So, I mean, I just deliberately say no to things like that. You know, people have come up to me and said, "Can you create a game for my mindfulness group?" No, I can't, because what you want is a totally different game. And you wouldn't be able to afford the cost that it would be for me to do it properly. And I can't afford to put out something that isn't good for you. It might tick your box because you have a low standard of what is a good game, but it doesn't tick my box in terms of what I want people to think about me and my company. So I'm quite strict about that.
That's an interesting thing about your kind of desired quality level. I mean, I ended up not doing actually. I mean, does everything that you make, even if it's not your chosen thing, have to be brilliant? Like, if you're doing a video, does every video need to be brilliant? Does every piece of writing need to be brilliant? If you do if tabled, because I kind of regret this in some ways. So I was going to do a show about word games, and then I was like researching it and I was going to do best show about word games ever for, you know, Tabletop Gaming Live. And then I was like, yeah, this is going to be good, but it's not going to be brilliant. It doesn't really encapsulate everything that I know.
Yeah.
And I decided to not do it at the last moment. And
well,
I kind of...
You know, the answer to that is, what are you selling? Are you monetizing your video channel? In which case you might care more about the quality of the video. Or is it a means to an end? Is it a vehicle to get more people to follow you and to get more people to be interested in your games? For me, if I'm coming on here and talking to you, it's a vehicle for me to get more people to just know who I am and to know about what I do and the kind of games that I create. It's not something I'm selling. I don't sell myself. I don't charge for me to go out and be into, you know, to appear on a show. I don't, you know, so it's about the quality. I think has got to do with whether people are paying for it or not. For me, at least. Although I realize I've just said that I want to put out good games, even if they're free. And that's because the things that people pay for at the Dark Imp are games. And if I'm putting out a game that isn't good, which is supposed to designed to hook people into the games, then that's a mismatch for me. But if I'm putting out a video that isn't quite as high quality as a video could be, well, nobody minds, because I'm not selling myself as a videographer.
But it's not about production quality necessarily. It's all about the information that you deliver with that video. I mean, look, for those who don't know, most of these, I try to spend as little time on them outside of the thing as I can. And so that involves, okay, maybe beforehand I spend 10 minutes putting the banners together, just copy pasting things. Maybe like a couple of weeks beforehand, I, you know, spend 10 minutes writing a thing and bits of thoughts on, okay, what are we going to talk about roughly? And if it's a group chat, I'll spend a little bit more time thinking, okay, these are the specific things that we're going to chat about, because that way we've got a bit more of a framework. Here's 4 or 5 key questions that I'm going to make sure we hit in this order. That keeps it more focused, because I want it to at least be I don't need it to be a 10 out of 10 show for anyone. I want it to at least be a 7 out of 10 thing. And I want people to kind of get something out of it. Hopefully I'm explaining that, yeah, my reviews on Sundays aren't going to be the best reviews. Part of it is for me, like the fact that now I feel more comfortable getting rid of Gang de Meme, and Uptown. I discovered after my thing that actually Uptown and the reprinting, which is called Blockers, they had 2 different sets of rules. And so I might try the new sets of rules, but it's...
But look, Bez,
I've not done all this research. Do you know what I mean?
But that's not the important thing here. It doesn't matter that you're putting out the best video you can possibly put out every time you're doing it, because if you were aiming to do that, then you wouldn't create content like you are. And the same is true of me. If I was aiming to always put out the best possible thing, I'd be paralyzed by worry that I've missed something out, and that and that's just the way it is. You can't always. Perfectionism is a real barrier to getting any kind of content out. And when we're talking about marketing, the kind of consistency and the level of output you need prevents you from being a professional, from being a perfectionist, really. This is a marketing activity, not something that I'm selling. This is and that's the difference. For me, that's the difference. That it's got.
You are kind of selling your expertise. I mean, if you come on here and then it becomes apparent that let's say hypothetically you were to come on here and it's emerged that you haven't played any of the games from this century, that would be pretty shoddy. I mean, that would be like, hey, why are we even trusting Ellie? I mean, Ellie doesn't know any of the games from the 2000s. I mean, there's been massive jumps in games. And so you are kind of selling your knowledge, because your knowledge is what allows you to make good games. I don't know.
Yes, of course. But there's a level, isn't there? I feel like, most people that are choosing to put themselves out there and communicate, whether it's in this format or whether it's written, that you've already got a certain level. And the difference is, whether you're here or whether you're here, or whether you're here, maybe, not whether you're here or whether you're here. It's incremental. It's incremental. And actually the advantage of putting out lots of stuff that's pretty good outweighs what it would be if you put out fewer stuff that's really, really amazing. You're laughing at comments. I haven't seen them.
Yeah. Hello, Jess, firstly, and says, has Ellie played any modern games? What is her favorite version of Monopoly?
Yeah, well, I don't have... Actually, I do have a favorite version of Monopoly, because interestingly, on theme, talking about wedding games, I have a wedding version of we have our own version of Monopoly, because you can get your own version of Monopoly, and I gave it to my husband as a wedding present. He doesn't like Monopoly. It was a crap wedding present, but it's the only version of Monopoly we have, and it's got all the places we've lived and all the vans that we've owned, and so yeah.
Has it ever been played?
Sorry?
How many times has it been played?
Well, the kids like playing sometimes, so it has been played more times than I would play. Quite a few.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well,
I have played a few modern games, so I think I'm all right.
And of course, that is an understatement for anyone who doesn't know Ellie. You can check out lots of those vids, but let's get back to it's not just about perfectionism and accepting things and saying, and for the record, if anyone wants me to do something that's with between 12:30 p.m. and 6 p.m. most days UK time, I'll probably say, yes, I'm up for doing it, but it's also what level of quality, what level of preparation do you need? And yeah, if you're just getting yourself out there, it's like everything is connected, and it kind of feels icky and wrong, because in this day and age, if let's say I go to Thailand and then I start doing a travel log about, hey, here's this restaurant in Thailand today, this is just a show about this, and maybe I'll mention a board game along the way, but it's basically just 3 days a week I'm literally just talking about where I've been in Thailand. I'm sure some people who are interested in me, like some of my friends, would be interested in that show, and maybe watch it after the facts. But you know, people who watch that eventually, maybe if I say, okay, this is my next Kickstarter, whatever my other thing is, I think that some of your audience would come over. Do you know what I mean? And it's like this kind of icky thing where marketing yourself, no matter how you market yourself, is kind of also marketing anything that you sell. And as soon as you're a freelancer, as soon as you yourself asking money for something, even in this day and age of, if you're changing jobs fairly often, anything that you do for yourself to say, hey, I am easy to work with, I am good at listening to people, then, well, you're more likely to get more people who are up for doing co-design or asking you to do development for them. If they're like, yeah, Bez isn't going to just be unreliable, Bez is actually able. I mean, the fact that I've done this for 192 days without interruption, I think that shows that, hey, I'm not going to do, it's not guaranteed that I'll do everything, but if I committed to something, I'm not like Kickstarter, things, they are estimates, and we can have a discussion about that another day, but like, it suggests that I'm somewhat reliable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and that's it, isn't it? When the things that hook people into deciding whether to actually buy from you or not, there are all sorts of things. I remember when we ran our other company, we started talking about it in terms of a pincer movement. So, you people hear about you in lots of different ways. They might hear about you from somebody they know, then they might read your name somewhere, then they might see you on a stream somewhere, and then they might, see a free game, or see your email somewhere, and or see you in a Facebook group, and you kind of get them from both sides, and eventually you hook them in and they buy. And so, and the people's impressions of you are developing in all sorts of different ways. So, I think the key thing is, if you want to market to families, you have to be where families are. Whoever your ideal customer is, it doesn't matter whether it's a family or not, but whoever your ideal customer is, you have to be where they are. You have to get, so they're going to see you. They're going to get the message subliminally, so you can get closer and closer to the point at which you can actually sell to them. So, you can make decisions about things that you're doing and things that you aren't doing based on that a lot of the time. And there are all sorts of specific things you can do in terms of marketing for families and selling, trying to hook families in, which may or may not be similar to other games. So, for example, the theme of a game can help you. So I've got a game called Donut Dash, which I don't know if you've played actually, Bez, but it's about a donut factory, and you're trying to get the best donuts. You're trying to steal. You've got a team of 2 thieves, and you're trying to steal donuts from the donut factory and from the other thieves that are prowling this donut factory at night. And it's a very light theme. It's quite an interesting grid movement game, simple programming, and people really like it. But the fact that the theme is donuts helps me hook in to certain things. For example, at the moment, I'm looking to partner with a donut company so I can take a video of us doing a giant version of the game with real donuts, that we can stack the donuts on top of each other. I have had a couple of offers, but I'm just trying to get it from a company who is able to deliver nationally, because hopefully the video will go out nationally, and is happy to donate these things for the joint promotion. Really, I know donuts, you want them, of course, but I also need them to make some tomato ketchup donuts for it. So I know
Oh
Um,
yeah, these are the booby ones that you get
yeah,
negative.
that you get a negative.
Although I really want to. When are you doing this? Will it be before I leave? Can I try one of these ketchup
I'm
donuts?
aiming to do it when we come out of lockdown, and you are on my list of people to call, because I think that it would be fabulous to have you playing the game with giant donuts. And
I would really like to taste the tomato ketchup donuts.
exactly.
Although you will probably have to make extra of them, because if the only way we get them is as a booby prize, I would actually be going for them. So I would be subverting the game.
I'm glad you'd be going for them, because I wouldn't. But another thing, with that, I've recently realised that with the donut game, so there's the opportunity of hooking in a donut company and getting out to their audience. Now, if they've got the same kind of target customer as I have, now that's brilliant, right? Because that's another audience that I can market to. But also, I've recently been approached by the Jewish Times, because for Hanukkah, donuts are a big thing, and they want to put it in the Hanukkah gift guide as one of the things that they could that people can buy as a gift for that occasion, because and they showed me last year's gift guide and it's full of donut stuff. So that's not something I thought about before, but actually is a really nice hook. So if you're trying to market a game, where is the niche? How can you get out to people? Where can you get your publicity from? Who will also be interested in telling people about this for you? Because if you're marketing, you've got your own customer base, your own, if you've got your own email marketing list or something, that's fine. But if you can tap into someone else's email marketing list and they can push you out as well, and their social network, and then you're doubling up, really. And so are they, because you can promote them, they can promote you. So where do your games fit? How can you reach out with people? That's kind of a good thing to think about, I think.
And I really like this niche that you're talking about with, okay, if you've got a game all about fish, maybe check out local aquariums. I mean, I love what Xates is writing about, this crazy mustard-filled, I don't know what a snickerdoodle cookie is, but making a mustard-filled snickerdoodle cookie, that does sound awesome. I would definitely be all over that. And just to thank you very much, Javier, for the kudos and lots of love. I just appreciate that people seem to be enjoying them, because, they are something that people are watching more and more. It started off with one person, Alan Out, and basically watching it all the time for like the first 10, 20, 30 episodes.
Where is Alan?
Alan doesn't watch so much live these days. But Alan quite often watches afterwards, apparently. And maybe, like, if Alan listens to this, sends me a message, because I'm curious to know, like, how often does Alan actually, yeah. And Xates was totally here towards the start, for sure, like, if I'm giving shout-outs to people. But Xates, just to say, yeah, Xates is the person who definitely helped me build this into the amazing community that it is. I mean, obviously I did quite a bit of it as well. I don't want to undermine the work that I did by, doing this, by actually having to get up even on those days that some other people aren't coming here. Like, I'm here every day, Xates isn't, but also kind of reaching out to people and say, hey, would you be willing to come on here? Sometimes, like, not reaching out to all the Americans, but because, it's 5 a.m, that feels a bit unreasonable, although a couple of them have said, hey, we are okay to come on here. But reaching out to people in Europe, even if I'm like, hey, I'm not sure how comfortable I feel asking this of you, but would you be willing to come on?
But now, that's what, earlier on we were talking about the value of kind of nurturing the people around you and your network. And that's the same thing, your network is the people that you reach out to, the people that come here every day and watch stuff, or that drop in, every, once in a while and watch stuff, the people that you're collaborating with. And what you're doing is a huge marketing thing. Your marketing is not just in terms of the output, but in terms of all the communications you have around it and the discussions you have with people, and everybody knows that you're doing it. So it's a much bigger thing than it looks like, and you're nurturing those relationships with potential collaborators and actual collaborators. So it's a great marketing thing.
let's and thank you very much for all that love and adoration. I'm just going to soak it all up. Would you rather not talk about the donuts thing? Because I'm just curious about the thought process that goes into partnering with someone. Like, do you try to go for the biggest donut company you can? Or do you go for, like, okay, a local person because they're more British and more quintessentially? Do you go for someone whose values align with yourself? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, so far I've got offers from a couple of small-ish donut companies, but I'm struggling to come to a final agreement with either of them because they're not very responsive, and they're probably quite busy, or they're not busy enough at the moment. It's hard to know. So I've talked this through with people that that I know that are not in this industry but that have their own small businesses, and their advice is to, well, either to get someone very local. So I've been asking for recommendations, and I think that's the thing, you know, that's the power of your own network. If you're looking for a donut company, ask everybody you know. Tell people, I'm looking for a donut company. I'm looking for a donut company. Who knows? And you know, I think also you can't assume that the big players won't be interested. So it is. In fact, I'm going to do it today. Now that we're talking about this, I'm going to do it today. I am going to try and get in touch with Dunkin' Donuts and probably Krispy Kreme, and see if either of them bite. And I've already been thinking about how I'm going to do that. And I think I'm going to start by trying to tweet them or, you know, contact them via social media, because those accounts are often monitored by somebody who is in the right department, even if they're not the person who has the right power of decision making. But they will probably be somebody who's in marketing. Well, they will be somebody who's in marketing, possibly even somebody who's responsible for that, because those big companies, whoever is managing the social media account, that's a huge responsibility. So they're not going to leave it to somebody who hasn't got a lot of, you know, it's going to be somebody in that area. So I'm going to try that, and I'll let you know how it goes. But I think obviously the benefit for me of partnering with a bigger company is that they have a huge network. The disadvantage of that is that I won't be as important to them as they are to me. And so it's just about whether it catches, if it's something that they're interested in doing and that they choose to promote across their channels. The advantage of having a smaller company is that they're investing slightly more into it. You know, if they're donating donuts, that's not necessarily such a small thing. And yeah, Greg's might be a match, but if I had a game about sausage rolls next, that's what I'm going to do next. A game about.
I mean, it sounds like it's a game specifically about donuts. I mean, you don't just want any baked goods, and you're ideally wanting someone who would actually create for you that specific horrible flavor of tomato ketchup donuts.
Exactly.
I honestly think tomato ketchup, have a bit of Tabasco and peanuts on it. That would be amazing.
It might turn out to be quite nice, but we'll see. Worcestershire sauce, maybe some sort of infused. I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see. You'll get to try it when it's happening. But yeah, I mean, that's a good, you know, that's one of the good ways of you can kind of market things by finding a sort of strategic partnership, I guess.
Otherwise, it's tomato jam thing, like sweetness, but
relish maybe. But I don't think that's as, you know, it's not got the consistency. You know, when you get tomato relish, it's all a bit bitty, and what you really want is that smooth, like ketchup.
You want it to be glazed. You want it. I mean, this is not a show about donuts.
No,
this is a show about marketing for donuts. It's really interesting hearing this case study in what you are going through, but I really wanted to, let's talk about what we said we were going to talk about, which was families tend to not be as actively interested in searching for games, because hobbyists are, okay, I'm actively searching, what's the next game? I mean, if you're watching this, you're probably a hobbyist. Maybe you're like actually really interested in knowing okay, how is Taj Mahal? Oh, well, I should really play it. I hear it's really good. It's a bit older. It's like 20 years old. It's really holds up today. And maybe you're like interested in hearing what Bez has to say about all these games. Maybe you're interested about just talking about games because you can't play them right now. Maybe you go on to Board Game Geek to read more about these games, to hear other people's opinions. Maybe you go on to Kickstarter. You are part of a board game Facebook group. Maybe you are searching for board games on Twitter. Most
and you're listening to
aren't doing that.
You're doing all sorts of things, but the families aren't doing that. Not if they're, if they are the kind of family that buys one game a year for Christmas, they're not doing that. And where are they finding that information? How are they deciding what game to buy? Well, you have to, they're being passive about that. So it's just wherever they happen to be, whether it's hanging out on Amazon or whether somebody's mentioned it to them or whether you come up on, you get into their sphere in some way. You have to get into their, whatever they're looking at in some way, whether it's through a conversation, whether it's something they're listening to, whether it's a blog that they're reading that's totally nothing to do with games. Whatever it is, you have to kind of pop up for them. And so at the moment, there are lots of, normally that you've got lots of Christmas markets going on, for example, and that's a good opportunity to publish, to publicize games to families. But at the moment, it's all virtual. So I'm on quite a lot of different virtual Christmas markets on Facebook. There are a few that are free. The local ones are really good wherever you are. And you'll usually find that you're the only I'm the only person selling board games in my local Christmas markets. There's lots of people selling soaps and skincare stuff and not very many people doing, other things. So, you stand out a bit in that way. So that's good. And I've also got, back in September, journalists started asking and bloggers started asking for things for gift guides. And, I've been sending out my sets of coaster games to people. And so keeping an eye on the journo requests on Twitter, for example. So when people are giving a shout out for gifts that they want to put in their guides, you'll send it. Now, you do have to send them a copy. But this comes back to, what you're choosing to make, what kinds of games you're choosing to make. And so, the games that I've chosen to make are games that are likely to be shared more widely. Okay, Donut Dash and Gnome Grown and the bigger games, not necessarily, but the coaster games, they are so easy to access. They can go in all sorts of different things. They go in party bags. They go, out on the table at weddings. They'll go, all, cafes, all different kinds of places. This is easy access and people can hook into it. You might come across this as as any kind of family, not a gaming family. And because the rules are super quick and easy and on the back of the coaster, and you can see very quickly and it's low risk haven't got a big rule book to look through. It's low risk for them. It becomes very accessible and it can hook them in. And then, they might look at your other games. I've created these cracker games, not because I think that, a cracker is the way to share games at Christmas, but because I know that there are lots of people that are buying eco-friendly crackers and that are looking, because they're a very wasteful time in a family's Christmas. You buy a whole box of stuff that costs, well, whatever you want it to cost, really. You pull them apart, there's a load of mess and there's a load of tat inside. And increasingly, people are not happy with that. So they're looking for alternatives to something. And I've played in the last few years, they've got the crackers with the little bells in that you're playing a tune to. I've got the crackers with whistles in, and they're trying to make something that's a bit more of an experience, but they're still pretty crappy. And now if you've got a cracker, and it's one cracker, not six, but, if you've got a cracker game, this is going to start to replace those things that people aren't comfortable with anymore. And so it's a way in. So I'm thinking about, when I'm right back at the beginning of the design process, how am I going to market this? How am I going to sell this? How am I going to get to my target customer? Therefore, that dictates what kind of games I'm making.
And what I'm really hearing is that you've got to step outside of the board gaming thing, go to where your audience is, and that's the major thing. Exactly. So kind of follow, not only go to where your audience is, but go to where the people who are speaking to your audience are.
Yep.
Go to those influencers and say, hey, keep an eye on them. Like, is it just a case of scouring Twitter and Facebook, putting in the hours every day and being like, okay, this is what's happening. Okay, I'm lucky enough to come across this request for things for this gift guide. Now I see it. Or are there mailing lists and stuff that you can recommend?
There are mailing lists, but also all the stuff is also on Twitter. So the problem with the mailing lists is that you end up having to pay to subscribe to them. And so if you've got any kind of aggregating, like TweetDeck or anything like that, Hootsuite or something that you're using on Twitter, or even if you haven't, and those are all free, then you can create a sort of search that is #journo request and then put in the words gift guide if you want, and that's always going to come up. Now they all want a copy. They won't put you in there. For them, it's like, I'm going to do a gift guide on, whatever it is, and I'm going to get all this stuff. And that's one of the reasons that makes it worth their while. So you have to create things that you're happy enough to give away, that are cheap enough for you to give them away. Otherwise, it's hugely costly. I mean, I've sent out, so it started in about September, the gift guides, and I've sent out probably 30 or 40 different sets of coaster games, and I've chosen to only tell them about the coaster games because I know that they don't cost me very much. The postage costs more than the game for me. So it's about making sure that it's financially viable to me. And if I can hook people in with a coaster game and get them onto the site, and they might spend $6.99 for a set of coaster games, then they might buy something else as well. And I've created some Christmas bundles that allow them to get the crack around the coasters, a bit like a pledge level on Kickstarter. It's a bundle of different games. So yeah, it's about, with the gift guides, that's what that's about really. But on Twitter, that's the place where most of them are putting out their requests. And you can get back to them on Twitter.
And you say that people are doing it mainly to get this free stuff, but I would have thought that if they're writing for The Sun or whatever, then they would be paid for this content.
But a lot of them are bloggers, so they're creating their own, that they are, they're doing gift guides on their own blog. So, if I got into a gift guide in The Sun, I would send them everything and anything. I don't care how much it costs me, because having a board game in the gift guide in The Sun or the Telegraph or whatever kind of big publication it is, The Guardian, is worth it for me, because I'm going to sell enough. I'm going to sell one, and that's enough to pay for it, right? But if we're talking about blogs, it's not clear how big the audience is necessarily. It's not, or you don't know what's going to come back from that. So it's a bit of a risk, but it's a numbers game. So if you've got lots and lots of different gift guides out there, it's sending links. They're putting links back to your website, which increases your website authority, which means that Google is going to rank it more highly, and people are going to see you. It's that pincer movement again. Where are they finding you? Where are they first hearing about you? Where are they next hearing about you? Are they getting closer to a purchase?
And Xate says that they will write a gift guide blog post about your games.
Brilliant. Where's your blog? That's what I want to know.
Alex says, have you had gift guides asking for any type of referral fee?
Yes, and I just say no. I haven't paid, because for a start, it's a bit like reviewers. And I know some game reviewers, ask for payment, particularly for Kickstarter projects. But it's a bit like that for me. If I pay you, it's not independent. And I know that the quality of the games stand up for themselves. And okay, I'm giving you a free game. I understand that I am paying you in terms of giving you a game. But I'm not you're not tied into what you say about that, how highly you recommend it, whether you put it in your gift guide or not. Those people are not necessarily. I've sent it out to lots, and I haven't got as many as that gift guides. You know, it's not published in that many gift guides, so there's no guarantee you're going to get published. But I think that, you know, if you're paying, then it's not necessarily any better. Just because you're paying for it, it doesn't mean that that listing is better than the other listing that you're not paying for. And there are so many people that you could pay. There are so many influencers that, you know, you don't know what the influence is. You can't, it's harder to measure. So I have just, for the moment, I've just said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not paying anybody to do any kind of review or list anything.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms about paid reviews and stuff. And
also the same for the Christmas markets. You know, I have actually paid to be in the Hertfordshire Christmas market. It's a £5 from the beginning of November to the end of December. So you know, it's nothing. It is just an admin covering thing. You know, that they have to moderate the posts. That's all it is, and that, you know, that feels fine. But there are plenty of virtual Christmas markets that you have to pay for, and I've at the moment chosen not to do that because there are so many that you can get out there for free.
And a quick hello to Matthew. Thank you for watching. And we're just talking about marketing everything, and it feels like this whole notion of who do you send your stuff to, who do you not. Like, I know that Forest Bower, like back at the time, they didn't charge anything. It was just, okay, you send me a thing and that's it. But nowadays they say, well, if I don't know you, if you are just sending me a thing, it's something like $20 or something like that, where it's basically just to say, I don't want to have everyone sending me their game. I just want to have something that kind of helps cover that, basically, so that not everyone sends me their game. And there's going to be an aspect of, well, if you send a really heavy, meaty, complex game to Forest Bower, that's probably the wrong choice. But if you've given them, you know, this, I don't know whether at that point to be like, hey, don't even bother sending me the game, keep the money, it's not a game for me. Or if it got to that point that you completely misunderstood what kind of channel they are, because this is a channel where they're playing lightweight games like Munchkin and games with their family and games with their school children because they're a teacher. And, you know, that's the audience that you play games with. And it's like, you've got to look at the reviews, be like, okay, who watches the reviews? But this is like such a big thing of how do you pick it, not from a reviewer's perspective, but from, and this kind of almost ties into like, I've got plans for when I go to Thailand, like you talking about, you know, I'm not going to monetize this, but I was thinking, like, as part of a development thing, maybe like I do say, okay, you know what, if you send your stuff, we will do video playtests, like set up some sort of commune. And this is like just a vague idea. This is not like definitely happening, but it's like, you know, it's quite cheap labor, and like to say, okay, I'm going to pay you the going rate, let's spend like 1 day a week together on this thing, and let's actually go through other people's games. And then for people that I start to trust, okay, they are into board games, and almost like setting up something like inspired by Bowser and Antoine Bowser, who's got like these different people coming together. But it's like, anyway, that's a whole separate thing.
But it comes back, Bez, it comes back to who's your ideal customer and who you're trying to communicate to. You know, you don't want to pay to be to get your game reviewed by somebody who is reviewing different games, not because they don't play those games, but because the people that are watching that, I mean, that is a thing, but because the people are watching that aren't looking for your kind of game. And it's the same with gift guides. You know, you don't want to be, you know, in a gift guide where they're selling to 20, if I don't want to be in a gift guide where they're selling to 20 somethings who are really interested in beauty and, you know, going out and going out on the town and stuff. I want to be selling to, you know, I want the blog to be a blog that is appealing to adults, that they're going to be looking at, because, you know, appealing to parents rather. So it's you know, it comes, for me, it all comes back to that. You know, what am I choosing to do? Who's going to watch this? What's the benefit of that?
Let me ask a few questions before we wrap up. Firstly, can family games work on Kickstarter? Of course they can, but how do we make it work better?
Yes, family games can work on Kickstarter, but and I've just run the Cracky games on Kickstarter and it was very successful. But yes, I had people coming to me through Kickstarter that wouldn't have bought them if, you know, that didn't know about me otherwise, and that found me through Kickstarter, and there'll be more gamers. But I had a huge number of people coming to Kickstarter who'd never supported a Kickstarter before. So they were there because I told them this is how they could get this product, that they had to come to Kickstarter to get it. So yes, they can work, but then I had to create a video to show people how to do it. They'd never backed a Kickstarter before. I had to hold people's hands. I was on the phone to people saying, right, press this and then press this. And, you know, that's the reality. You know, people saying, well, what is Kickstarter? I don't understand it. What does it mean to be a backer? And, you know, so if you are marketing to people who haven't gone through that and they're not used to buying in that way, you have to think about that when you're trying to market to them, and allow for that in your communications.
Yeah, that makes lots of sense, kind of catering to those first time folk and making sure that on top of everything we've already talked about. Now, the final question that I wanted to ask was, can we partner with schools?
Yep.
And
of course.
how in what situations would it be, like, as a publishing company, in what situations would it be profitable, in what situations would it be worthwhile, and how have you partnered with schools? Can you tell us about that at all?
So I've got some schools that have purchase games, and sometimes they purchase games because they've got a little board game club, but sometimes they're purchasing it because they want something to do as a starter activity. So for example, again, it's the coaster games a lot because they're so cheap that they can buy them in bulk and they can give everyone in the class their own coaster. They can play socially distanced. They can take the coaster home and play at home. Now that's an advantage for schools because they're always looking for things that can link the homeschool experience so that they've got more communication with school. So if they're doing something, been given something in school that they've loved, then they can take it home and they can play it at home. That's a benefit. The placemat games that I've got, which are roll and writes for any number of players, you've played these bears, they've been designed with schools in mind, because then you've got a whole whole class that can play at the same time as each other, and they've got something they can each put in front of them, and they're working on their own placemat. I mean, I think, you know, partly it's the format, partly it's the cost, and, you know, how accessible it is. How easy is it to fit into the school day is a huge thing. So they're not going to be playing things that take a long time, that require resetting. If they've got half an hour maximum, the quicker the better. And then things that are going to be used in the curriculum. So, for example, Bez, your LDAC games, you could create videos for teachers talking to them about how they can use this deck of cards in lots of different starter activities for literacy. They're always looking for starter activities, finisher activities, things that are going to hook them in, that are going to complement or go alongside different areas of the curriculum. So if you've got a theme or a type of game that really is, aligned with part of the curriculum, then that's going to be massively helpful. If you've created a card game about Romeo and Juliet, well, that's on the curriculum, right? Teachers are going to buy it, and you're going to find it easier to market to drama teachers, to English teachers. If you've got a game about some war or other that's always on the history curriculum and is really difficult to teach the contents or the dates or something like timeline or something like that, that's going to get into schools because it is educational. And it's a whole nother show talking about educational games. But yes, of course, if it's in a format, content which is going to be useful to schools, then schools will be interested.
I mean, that would be great to have you on to talk about that, given your experience, you know, as a teacher, of course, and
Yeah.
I assume you've kind of been / are on both sides of the table, of course.
Yeah.
And it would be really lovely to chat about that in a couple of months.
We will do
potentially.
that when I see you next, then.
Yeah, when it well, next we were going to chat about Christmas games with yourself, Alan, Paul, and hopefully someone else that I can think of who is making seasonal games. Not necessarily Christmas, just seasonal games. But whoops. So it is that time when I start to wind down and I say thank you very much. This has been amazing. Let's recap. So we started off talking about big glasses and about herbal tea, which you might have noticed me drinking most of in one fell swoop when it was almost at that perfect temperature for me. About books and just things being 80% marketing. We had a site tangents into Monopoly and weddings and kind of talking about getting yourself out there, who's your customer, and partnering with people. For example, maybe that's to do with donuts, about how people are recommending games to each other. Reach outside of board game stuff, because if you're trying to actually grow the audience to people who are maybe happy with those games that aren't as good as they could be, then the way to reach them is by following those people, not just going into the spaces where those people are, but following those people who are speaking to those people, speaking to the mummy bloggers, speaking to the parents, anyone who's making those gift guides, potentially having something cheap. If you've got like a smaller game and this is the important thing, it needs to still be a good game. It doesn't need to be free. It just needs to be a good game that you can be proud of and think, hey, this is a thing. And following that hashtag journal request, hashtag gift guide, thinking about those first-time folk for your Kickstarter, holding people's hands, explaining what Kickstarter is, and having some boundaries. When people ask you to do things, don't always say yes. You need to think about not running yourself ragged, thinking, okay, maybe I'm not going to do this thing at 2 a.m. Or if it's like, just say, okay, this is my working day. It's from this time to this time, and this is when I'm willing to do things. And sure, I understand if it was Radio 4, you might be more likely to say, okay, I'm not going to spend time with my family on this one evening. It doesn't mean that you're going to do that every day. You still need to take time for your personal self. And so, say yes to whatever you can within those limits, is what you said. And the sad fact is that it is 80% marketing. And that talking about paid reviews and talking about partnering with schools, those are things that we could talk about for hours and hours more, but we've touched upon it. It's like, what's the utility value for you? And is your game appropriate for the school? Is it in that format that lots of people can play at one time? Is it short enough? Is it good for an opening activity? Can it fit into, a short lesson? And all those sorts of things that we will hopefully get to at some point in the future. And so I want to say massive thank you to everyone. Obviously, thank you to Ellie. It's been lovely having you here, and thank you for sharing all your expertise. Also, thank you to everyone in chat. Thank you to just everyone in chats who's been excellent today. I don't think we've had any bad people, and thank you to Xates, who's like a good swingy sword moderator. Generally, and thank you to like everyone who's just popping in. It's lovely to see you, and thank you to Javier and everyone for all the love along the way, who just say, oh, Bez, you're doing a good job. That is generally lovely. And if you want to check out me, I am stuffbybez.com, stuffbez.bigcartel.com, twitter.com/stuffbez, instagram.com/stuffbez, twitch.tv/stuffbez is the thing that I probably spend the most time on right now. Almost certainly, I would say. I stream every day at 10 a.m. UK time and Tuesdays 8 p.m. youtube.com/stuffbez if you wish to see the old episodes, and stuffbez.com/discord is if you want to chat about more things about this show. Go to the BBBB chat, and there's a general discussion, there's a design discussion there, and there's a cat chat where people can just share photos of cats. It's basically the new digital implementation of what I used to have at every convention I used to go. People are genuinely welcome to just draw pictures of cats and stick them up. As long as you took the photo, as long as you drew the picture, you know, it's all good. Don't be just trolling the internet for pictures of cats and sharing that. Anyone can do that. I want your pictures. I want your pictures of cats.
Yeah. Okay.
Picture, yeah.
I'll bear that in mind.
Okay, thank you. But let me go to, I'm going to paste in, whoops, didn't mean to do it there. I'm going to paste in the links to Ellie Dix. And how do you like to be found?
Well, the website is thedarkimp.com. You can find me on Twitter as well, Ellie Dix tweets or Dark Imp Games. I'm on Instagram, sort of lurking, and yeah, LinkedIn and all sorts of places. Come to my YouTube channel, subscribe to it. Yeah, thank you.
And some people are saying, like, what's about thanks for the non-excellence peeps?
They don't
and what if you're feeling sub-excellence? You know, I'm here to tell you that even if you're not feeling excellence, and I understand, and not everyone can be their most excellent self, but even at your lesser excellent self, you're still pretty darn excellent. So
absolutely. That's quite right.
And oh, that's not what I meant at all. Don't take that's not. That's just twisting my words.
No, it was all going so well. People were being so nice.
Over to you. What are you up to? You can share anything you want to, but only if you want to, kind of. If you want to share something you're looking forward to, hopes and ambitions, something you have to do, maybe hold yourself accountable, because if you tell us, then you're more likely to do it, is the truth. So if you have a task, and today I'm rolling my sleeves up, as you can see, I'm going to type some rules. I'm feeling up to it. I'm going to have a walk. I'm going to have my breakfast, you know, within the next hour-ish, you know, for sure.
Lunch, and some people might call it.
Hey, it's breaking my fast. It is breakfast.
Okay.
Yesterday I had breakfast at like 5 p.m. I still call it breakfast.
Okay.
Don't take anyway. So if you want to share anything that's exciting or trivial or important or just fun, do that. And you know what I might do? I might play a wee bit of Chronicles of Crime with my housemate. See how that goes. So yeah, that is what I'm hoping for.
I am looking forward to my Glee evening on Thursday. This week the theme is songs we can sing to Trump. So we're doing things like American Idiot, You're So Vain, you know, things like Everybody Hurts and Hit the Road Jack, all sorts of things. So each week we do a different theme during the lockdown. Well, since March we've been doing a different theme because we're not working towards a show. We're just singing for fun. So yeah, it's fun. Each week a different theme. Looking forward to that.
Oh, we've got a suggestion.
Loser Baby. Yeah. I'm going to put that in our group chat. Thanks.
And people have... So, Alex, all the best with clearing out that shed. Scott is looking forward to the caffeine kicking in from the mug of coffee that they just drank. They only have one coffee a day, so it better be good. Alex suggests that I should call it a late brunch, whatever. And why do we need to get bogged down in such definitions? And if you want to check out future streams by me, check out stuffabez.com/streams. That will take you to my Google Calendar. Tomorrow, I've got Sally Jones on, and we're going to talk about confidence and business, and like it'll probably touch into imposter syndrome and like kind of having the confidence to make those difficult decisions, which I'm quite looking forward to. It's like these emotional things, you know, they are challenges, do you know what I mean? And it'll always be nice to chat to Sally. Sally is lovely. And in the evening tomorrow, don't know what we're going to play yet. We will play something. It'll probably be easy. And yeah, on Wednesday, background music with Amadeus, and there's all sorts of people. Check out the full schedule by going to that thing. Share, spread the word. We might have a raid if you are on Twitch. I will quickly check out who else is there on Twitch. But as we wind up, do you have anything left that you would like to say to anyone watching? Ellie or anyone in the comments? I trust the people in the chat to be good, but yes, you, Ellie.
Just lovely to be here again. Thank you for having me. It's been a lovely morning, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm also looking forward to making you eat ketchup donuts.
I mean, I will willingly try the first donut. Halfway through the first donut, depending on how big they are, I might be like, okay, actually, this is terrible. And at that point, it'll be like, okay, if I get to boogie donuts in future, okay, I will have the boogie donuts. But, you know, I will, before I actually lose any of the negative points, I'm not going to promise how much. It could go either way. I could be like, okay, this is legitimately terrible.
Yeah.
Or it could be like,
I think I need a rule change that if you manage to eat the ketchup donut, you don't have to score the negative points for it.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, and you can eat the other donuts as well, but also you don't score the positive points for them at the end of the game. So anything you eat, you don't score.
Wait, so are you allowed to score it after the game? Like the stuff that you get during the game, you are still allowed to eat all of that?
Yeah, after the end of the game. But if you start eating the donuts during the game, then you don't score them.
What if you eat half of the donuts? How much of the donuts are you allowed to eat?
No, that doesn't count. If you've eaten some of it, you don't.
Even if you've only taken the one bite.
Well, I suppose I could produce. You know, you could get a fraction of the. So if you've taken eaten a sixth of it, you could get a sixth of the point. You could only get 5/6 of the point value. I quite like that.
Oh.
It might be different. I might have to create a spreadsheet for this.
Chat is pro Ellie, so and this is Xate says that this seems like an interesting experiment of delayed positive reinforcement. It's like that whole if you wait to eat this, then you're going to get two things, but really it's do you care enough about the game to score the points when you could be eating this donut? Negative points if you lick your lips. That sounds very mean.
Yeah, that's very mean.
No points at all if you even lick it or lick your fingers after touching it. Wow.
But then you've also got to play to touch the pieces of the game. And I've had some giant imps made for this. Ooh, look.
I feel like we should if we are actually playing with these things, and let me make you a bit wow, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, they've been 3D printed for the donut, the big version, because normally you've got little imp meeples, imples. So I wanted, they would just get lost among the donuts. So now we've got the big imps.
Okay. I am wondering, are people going to have, like little see-through transparent gloves before they start touching all these donuts? Because if you start touching someone else's donuts, if you are touching a donut that I might eat.
Yes, that's what's going to happen. We're going to have to wear gloves.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, you could have those sorts of scoopy things, like a pizza, when they put it into the oven.
Like some tongs. Grabbing things.
Yes, you could use tongs. Absolutely.
Yes. You could also be forced to move your little imp with tongs, but it might get a bit confusing.
No, I think unless the imp has been washed before, because otherwise you could transmit stuff from the imp to the food.
True. Anyway, we'll sort it all out. It'll all
this is logistics.
Yeah.
We've got all sorts of suggestions. Xate suggests double points if you give the unlinked donut to the player with the least donuts. They also score the donut normally, but you get double points. So you're giving up your donut. So this could be an interesting expansion.
Except if you've got 64 donuts in the table, there's only 4 of you playing. there's not a scarcity of donuts. That would work if there wasn't an abundance problem.
I mean, or if the donuts were really tiny, like if the donuts.
Yeah, but they're going to be proper sized donuts, though. They're going to be like proper big ones. So yeah.
And Xate asks if they can get a box of donuts to help with the game development.
Yeah, that's that. Well, when I've tapped into the strategic partner on this project, I'll put that in as a request.
Yes, that is 16 donuts each. I mean, what I'm expecting is that after this game, most of the donuts are going to be... How many types of donuts are there again?
There are 5 different types.
Because that's how many I would definitely want to eat.
Yeah.
I would definitely want to eat 5. And so if I scored, let's say... I don't want to up my ego too much. I'm not saying I'm the world's best gameplay. Let's say I score marginally more than the average, which is 16. Let's say I score 20 of the donuts.
Oh no, there are some that are left on the... You don't score them all. At the end of the game, there'll still be some donuts on the table for general consumption.
Okay, so what I'm expecting is that there will be an audience who will kind of help with the donuts eating, and we'll probably have to take some to our respective households to kind of also enjoy them. We're not going to gorge ourselves and then have some sorts of wild Roman orgy with all this eating food multiple times.
There's definitely going to be a donut feast, but yeah, there'll be more than we can eat. There is an expansion to this already, so there is a 6th kind of donut, but I haven't published the expansion. I have got the little wooden donuts for the main game expansion, but yeah.
I want to just say that I could eat way more than 5, but I've realized that, like, you know, if you say how much could you eat, there's like a problem with overconsumption, and with tea on the side, the amount of possible donuts increases immensely. True. You don't want to have just donuts. Like if you eat donuts and no drink at all, that's too much. But,
that's difficult. Yeah. I once took part in a cream cracker eating competition at Radio Cambridgeshire when I was a child. Sounds quite random, I know. But the competition was only to eat 3 cream crackers. And I thought, that's easy.
But you'd get no water because it dries up your mouth.
Water. Yeah, it's quite hard. I didn't win.
I reckon I could eat 3 cream crackers.
Yeah. And I think there was only me and my sister that were children and all the others were adults. We heard it on the radio and thought, that sounds fun. Dad, take us down to Radio Cambridgeshire and we'll do this cream cracker eating competition. Anyway, the donut eating will be more fun. And
Xate is really trying to get in on this action and suggesting that they will give you recipes for the donuts. And you know what? You could... I don't know if this is like a worthy promotion because Xate doesn't have quite enough of an audience. But I mean, and I don't know if we can trust Xate to deliver nationally. But,
because I could get someone to make some, right? But I do want to use it as a marketing activity. So, but you know, they'll probably... yeah, that's... You know, I mean, get a few more followers first, and then we'll talk.
I mean, like, if you wanted to work together on a recipe book, like maybe, you know, actually, having said that, you might... Kim Joy's probably
like got a partner, hasn't she, to do that with?
Yeah. Apparently, I'm not good at keeping secrets, especially if you kind of just type it up in a public forum. I'm terrible at those secrets. But for the German language distribution, maybe you can partner up with Quality Beast.
Yeah.
Which Xate works for. But anyway, this has been lots of fun. Looking at things, I like to give a suggestion at the end of the show for those on Twitch. I'm going to ping over to Amadeus again. I think there's also Millie doing some sorts of role-playing game. Amadeus, we've been to a few times, so someone in the chat, let me know what you think. But it has been lovely, and there is basically only one thing left to do at this point. Okay, no one's mentioned anything, so I'm just going to rate Amadeus music because I do that. And for now, the only thing left to do is to say bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, bye. Bye bye. This is the end of the show. Bye bye. 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 And now it's time to go. Bye bye, everyone.